The human had lived in that small neighborhood for almost 2 years. It was quiet, safe, and normal, the kind of place where people watered their gardens. Children played in the streets and everyone knew each other's names. But then the house next door was sold and the new neighbor was not like anyone else. She was an alien. Everyone in the area whispered about it. Some were curious, others were afraid, but no one ever got close enough to know her well. She kept to herself most of the time, walking home at odd hours, carrying strange metallic boxes, and leaving glowing symbols on her door that no human could read. The human tried not to stare, but he could not help it. She looked different from everyone else. Her skin was pale with a faint shimmer, like moonlight reflecting on water. Her eyes glowed faintly even in the daytime. Sometimes they were blue, sometimes green, and sometimes they shifted to a bright gold when the sun set. He found her beautiful in a strange, dangerous way. For weeks nothing unusual happened. She would nod politely when she saw him, but never spoke much. Just a quiet hello in a soft accent. Then she would disappear inside her house, shutting the door quickly. But one night everything changed. It started with a sound. The human was reading in his living room when he heard a low hum coming from the neighbor's house. At first he thought it was some kind of machine, but the sound grew louder. It was almost like singing, but broken and full of pain. He stood up and looked through his window. Her house was glowing. Faint streams of light poured through the cracks of her curtains. The colors shifted from blue to purple to a violent red. It was not normal. His chest tightened as if the air itself had grown heavy. He pulled back quickly and closed his curtains, trying to ignore it. But the sound echoed in his head the next day. The human noticed scratches on her front door, long claw marks etched deep into the wood. He stopped and stared at them while passing by. They weren't like anything a normal animal could make, too deep, too sharp, too wild. When she opened the door, suddenly he almost jumped. Her eyes were glowing golden now. Brighter than ever, her breathing was heavy, and her skin shimmered even more strongly. She didn't smile this time. Instead, she looked at him like she was fighting against herself. She whispered, "You should stay away," then slammed the door shut before he could reply. That night he could not sleep. The humming started again, louder this time. His walls vibrated as if something powerful was moving inside her home. He went outside, his curiosity stronger than his fear. The cold wind hit his face as he walked closer. His heart pounded in his chest through the small cracks of her window. He saw movement. She was pacing, her hands clawing at the air. Her skin glowed brighter, and strange markings appeared across her body like living tattoos. She threw her head back and let out a sharp cry that shook him to the bone. It was not human. Not even close. Suddenly her head turned. Her glowing eyes locked on his shadow outside the window. For a moment he froze, his breath caught in his throat. He thought she would burst through the glass, but instead she whispered something he couldn't hear. Then she collapsed to her knees. Trembling violently, he ran back to his house, shutting and locking every door. His hands shook as he leaned against the wall. He had never felt fear like this. What was happening to her? Was she sick? Was it something dangerous? He couldn't understand it. By morning, the neighborhood buzzed with rumors. People claimed they heard animal-like screams. Others swore they saw lightning flash from her roof. Children were too scared to play outside, and some families even left for the night. But the alien neighbor stayed inside, her curtains drawn, her door locked. The human, however, couldn't stop thinking about her words. "You should stay away." She had not spoken them with anger. She had spoken them with fear, as if she was protecting him from something inside herself. That evening, as the sun set and shadows stretched long across the street, he stepped outside again. He told himself he would not look at her house, but his eyes betrayed him. The air felt heavier than before. Every breath burned in his lungs. His skin prickled as though invisible electricity was crawling on him. And then he saw her. She stood at her window, her glowing eyes fixed on him again. Her lips moved silently, forming words he could almost understand. Her hands pressed against the glass as if she wanted to break through. The golden light around her body flickered like fire. Her entire house pulsed with that strange energy. For a long moment, they stared at each other, human and alien, fear and curiosity mixing in the night air. Then she vanished, the curtain snapping shut with sudden force. The glow disappeared and silence swallowed the street. The human stood there trembling. He knew something was coming, something dangerous, something that no one in the neighborhood, no human anywhere, was ready for. and it had already begun. The next morning, the neighborhood felt different. The air was heavier, as if something invisible had shifted overnight. The human walked down the street cautiously. His eyes on the alien's house, the curtains remained drawn, but faint pulses of light escaped through the edges. Like the house was breathing, he tried to ignore it, telling himself it was just his imagination. But the strange occurrences could not be ignored. Dogs barked at nothing, cats hissed and ran, and even the trees seemed to shiver in the wind without reason. He felt a chill creep down his spine. By noon, he noticed his first warning sign. A small puddle had formed on the alien's porch, but it wasn't water. It shimmered with colors he couldn't name, blue, pink, and green shifting together like liquid rainbows. He knelt down carefully to look, but the moment he touched it, the liquid vanished, leaving nothing but the wooden floor. Curiosity battled fear in him. He wanted to ask her what was happening, wanted to help, but the memory of her words haunted him. You should stay away. Still, something inside him refused to obey. Something told him that whatever this was, it would not stop at her house alone. That evening, the first sound came, a soft hum, just like the night before, but this time it was outside. Near his own home, he froze mid-step. Scanning the empty street, the hum grew louder. Vibrating through the ground, he looked at the sky and saw no source. No drone, no machine, no aircraft. Just the quiet twilight. Then he saw movement. Shadows stretched along the fences, and in one corner of his yard, a small object hovered, glowing faintly. It looked like a crystal spinning slowly, its surface reflecting light in odd angles. He reached for it, then stopped. The hum grew louder, almost deafening, his ears buzzing. The crystal lifted, floating toward the alien house. The air around it rippled like heat waves, and leaves danced violently as if caught in a storm. The human ran, trying to keep up, but his legs felt heavy, like they were moving through thick mud. The crystal disappeared behind the curtains, and the hum stopped suddenly, leaving a ringing in his ears. He reached her door, panting, his heart hammering. He knocked lightly at first, then harder. His voice trembled as he called her name. No answer, only silence. He stepped back, looking at the windows, and saw her again. She stood there, trembling, her glowing eyes shifting from gold to blue. Her lips moved, silent words, but this time he could feel them, not with his ears, but with his mind, a strange vibration, like thoughts being pushed into his head. It has begun. I cannot control it. Stay back. The warning was clear, but also urgent, desperate. He felt her fear like a cold hand gripping his chest. That night he could not sleep. The hum returned, faint at first, then growing stronger. His house vibrated, dishes rattled, and his lights flickered. He turned on every lamp, every screen, every device, hoping to break the energy, but it was not electronics, not machines. It was alive. It felt alive. He looked out the window and saw them, small lights floating above the street, dozens of them, glowing crystals like the one from before. They danced around the alien's house, weaving through the trees, moving faster than the eye could follow. Their colors shifted constantly, purple to orange to green to blue, flashing like tiny stars, and then he heard it. The alien's voice, louder now, coming from her house, crying out in a mixture of fear and pain. It was not language he could understand, yet somehow it reached into him, stirring something primal, something ancient and deep in his chest. He felt as if the ground beneath him might open. He grabbed a flashlight and ran to the edge of her yard. The moment he stepped onto the path, a wave of warmth struck him. Like sunlight breaking through a storm, the crystals swirled around him, but did not touch him. They seemed to recognize him. Or maybe they sensed his courage, his fear, his curiosity, his humanity. She opened the door slowly, trembling, her glowing skin now shining brighter than ever. Markings ran across her body like rivers of light, and her eyes, one gold, one green, locked onto his. I did not want this. I cannot control it. Her voice cracked, raw with panic. He stepped forward cautiously. I won't hurt you. I'm not afraid. He had no idea why he said it, but something told him that telling the truth was the only way to survive what was coming. The crystals pulsed violently, almost like they were reacting to his words. And then she did something unexpected. She reached out, her hand glowing. If you want to survive, you must help me. Her voice was urgent, trembling, but behind it was a note of trust, of hope, something fragile and dangerous, something that pulled him forward even as fear screamed at him to run. The first signs were clear now. Whatever was happening, it was spreading, growing, and humanity was unprepared. The neighbor, strange and alien, was no longer a mystery to watch from afar. She needed him, and he could not turn away. Even as the crystals spun around them, bathing the street in eerie light, the hum grew, the air quivered, and the world felt like it was shifting. One thing was certain. The quiet neighborhood, the calm streets, the normal lives, they were gone forever, and the human was already in too deep to escape. The morning sun barely pierced through the mist that hung low over the quiet neighborhood. The human woke with a tight feeling in his chest, last night's events replaying in his mind. The hum, the crystals, the alien's trembling hands reaching toward him. It was not something he could easily forget. He hurried outside, hoping the streets would be empty, hoping that whatever had begun would have faded by dawn. But the air was thick, almost alive, vibrating with a low, constant rhythm. Birds refused to sing. Dogs crouched in corners, growling at invisible threats. Even the wind seemed hesitant, whispering in strange patterns. He walked toward the alien's house cautiously, his heart beating faster than it ever had before. The front door was slightly open, a soft glow spilling out. Pulses of light reflected across the walls, moving in patterns too complex for any machine. He stepped closer, and that same chill from before ran down his spine. Then he heard it, faint at first, a strange melody, like a song of joy and pain mixed together, rising and falling in tones his ears could barely follow. He recognized it immediately. It was the alien's voice, but not like before. This time it carried a strange urgency. A call, a warning. He remembered her words from last night. If you want to survive, you must help me. And now he understood the event had begun. Whatever this mating season was, it could not be contained, and it was spreading. He looked around the yard and saw the first signs. Flowers he had never noticed before bloomed instantly, opening in bursts of glowing colors, blue, violet, and pink petals shimmered in the morning light. And the air was filled with tiny floating orbs, like pollen, but they carried their own faint hum, moving in patterns, responding to the alien's song. He stepped closer, and the ground beneath him pulsed slightly. As if sensing his presence, he wanted to call for help. But he knew no one would understand. No human could handle this. The energy was too strong, too alien. It was not violent yet, but it had power, raw and unpredictable. Suddenly, she appeared at the doorway, her eyes glowing bright. Half of her skin shimmered with golden light, the other half with soft green. Her hair floated gently. Though there was no wind, her voice rose again, singing words he could not understand, yet he felt them deep inside his chest, stirring something primal. You shouldn't be here. It's dangerous. You can't stop it. But even as she warned him, he saw something else. A flicker of trust, a fragile hope, that despite the danger, she had chosen him to witness this, to help somehow. The humming grew louder. The floating orbs swirled around them like a storm. The plants reacted violently, bending toward her as if drawn by some magnetic force. And then he noticed movement at the edges of the yard, shadows forming shapes that were not entirely solid, creatures of light and energy, responding to her song. The human took a step forward. I'm not afraid. I'll help you. The words surprised even him, but he said them anyway, and immediately the alien's gaze softened. Her arms stretched toward him, beckoning. Then you must be close. You must feel it. As he approached, he felt the pulse hit him. Like waves crashing over his body, it was intoxicating. Not dangerous yet, but powerful. Stirring emotions he did not know he could feel. His senses were heightened. Every color brighter, every sound sharper. The air itself seemed alive, humming with the alien energy, and then it began. The transformation, subtle at first. Her markings shifted, glowing more intensely. The golden light expanded, spreading across her body in intricate patterns. The floating orbs moved faster, circling around her, their hum resonating with hers, forming a symphony of energy that seemed to fill the entire block. The human stumbled, almost overwhelmed, but he held on to the thought of helping her, of surviving, of witnessing this unknown phenomenon. He reached out instinctively, and as his hand touched hers, a shock of light surged through him. Warm, not harmful, but vivid, alive, connecting them. It's starting. The season has begun, she whispered, her voice trembling. But the tone was no longer fearful. It carried a mixture of wonder and caution. And humanity is not ready for this. Not yet. He understood immediately. This was not just about her, not just about her species. The mating season was a force, unstoppable, unpredictable, and spreading. It was beautiful, terrifying, and alien in every sense, and now he was part of it, whether he wanted to be or not. The floating orbs began to glow brighter, hovering above the street, over the roofs and in the yards, their patterns almost hypnotic, drawing his attention and yet warning him that the world as he knew it had shifted, that nothing would ever be the same. And as the alien song rose to a crescendo, the human realized one truth. He was not just a witness. He was now a participant in something beyond human understanding, something that could change lives, neighborhoods, and perhaps all of humanity itself. And for the first time he felt both fear and awe, a strange mix of exhilaration and terror, and he knew without a doubt that the days ahead would test him in ways he could never imagine, because the mating season had begun, and humanity was not ready. The sun climbed higher, but the neighborhood no longer felt like the place he had known. The air vibrated with a low, steady hum, a rhythm that seemed to pulse in time with his own heartbeat. The human could feel it through his chest, through his hands, through every nerve. The alien stood in the center of her yard, her body glowing brighter than before. The patterns on her skin shifted constantly, twisting and spiraling in colors he could barely name. Each pulse of light seemed to reach into the world around her, bending reality slightly, making the leaves shimmer unnaturally, the grass ripple as if alive. He watched, unsure if he should move closer or run. Every instinct screamed danger, yet curiosity, awe, and something deeper compelled him forward. His feet moved almost on their own, drawn by the invisible thread connecting him to her. "Don't come too close," she warned, her voice trembling. But now stronger than before, this pulse, it cannot be contained. It will affect everything. It will affect you. He hesitated, but he had already felt its touch, had already been pulled into its strange rhythm. I can handle it," he said, though his voice sounded small against the hum. He did not fully understand what he meant, but he meant it with every ounce of courage he had. The pulse grew louder, resonating through the street, through the walls of houses, through the very ground beneath them. The human could feel the vibrations in his bones. The world seemed to sway, colors bleeding into each other, shapes bending, and the air itself carrying a strange, electric scent. Suddenly the alien raised her arms, and the orbs around her shot into the sky like fireworks, exploding in tiny sparks of energy. Each spark seemed alive, floating and moving with intelligence, darting toward him and then away, teasing, testing, warning. He felt a jolt of something he could not name, a mixture of fear and excitement, desire and caution. The pulse entered his mind in waves, almost thoughts, almost memories that were not his, images of alien forests, glowing rivers, strange creatures, and voices calling, pleading, singing. He staggered back, holding his head, trying to ground himself. What is happening?" he whispered, but even as he asked, he knew he had crossed a line. There was no going back. The pulse was not just around them. It was inside him, inside every living thing nearby. The alien's eyes softened. It's unstoppable once it begins. It spreads, it awakens, it changes. It will reach others. It will reach humans. She paused, looking at him with a mixture of fear and hope. And you are its first human witness, its first human participant. He swallowed hard, the weight of her words sinking in. Participant? He felt the pulse again, stronger now, like a living thing, pressing against his chest, his mind, his soul. Each beat forced him to pay attention, to feel, to respond. "Yes," she said softly. "It needs connection. It needs response. You are connected now, whether you like it or not." She stepped closer, the light from her body wrapping around him, warm but intense, almost painful in its brilliance. He tried to resist, but it was useless. The pulse flowed through him, changing his perception, heightening every sense. The smell of the morning grass, the shimmer of the dew, the faint sound of distant birds. Everything was sharper, alive, vibrating with the alien energy. Then came the first sign of danger. Something moved in the shadows of the street. Not fully solid, not fully real. Dark shapes darting between houses, moving toward the pulse, responding to it, sensing it, drawn by it. The human's heart raced. "What are those?" he asked, fear gripping his voice. "Not enemies." "Yet," she said, her voice tense, "but the pulse attracts attention. Creatures, beings, forces, they will come. It cannot hide." The shapes moved faster now, circling the yard, watching, waiting, testing him, testing her. He clenched his fists, trying to steady himself. "Then we fight." Together, he said, surprising even himself. He had no idea how to fight energy, how to fight a force of nature, but the words felt right. He had chosen to stay. And now there was no turning back. The alien nodded, a flicker of relief passing across her face. Then stay close and feel it. Control it as much as you can. The pulse will not harm those who respect it, but it can overwhelm those who fear it. He reached out, taking her glowing hand again, and this time he welcomed the flow, letting it fill him, coursing through his veins, expanding his mind, changing his senses. The shadows on the street hesitated, as if recognizing his courage, the bond he had formed, and then a new sensation came, something beyond the pulse, beyond fear, beyond awe, a strange energy of life, of creation, of awakening, a subtle message whispered in his mind. You are ready. The season begins. He did not know what it meant, but he understood its importance. The pulse was no longer just hers. It was theirs, it was shared, it was unstoppable, yes. But now they were connected, he could survive it and maybe, just maybe, guide it. The human looked at her, eyes wide, heart racing. What happens next? She smiled, a mix of mischief and warning. Next, humanity sees what it has never imagined. Next, the world changes. Next, the season truly begins. And with that, the pulse surged again, stronger, brighter, more alive than ever, spreading across the neighborhood, touching trees, walls, streets, even the distant clouds, and the human realized, with both fear and wonder, that nothing would ever be the same again, because the alien mating season had begun, unstoppable, powerful, and completely beyond human control. By morning, the neighborhood looked almost normal, yet nothing about it truly was. The trees swayed in ways that didn't match the wind, and a strange shimmer clung to the air. The human stepped outside, trying to breathe, but every inhale carried a faint tingle, a vibration from the pulse. From a distance, people began to gather, drawn like moths to a flame, some curious, some frightened, some pointing devices, cameras and phones, all of them sensing that something unusual was happening, something beyond their understanding. He tried to blend in, hoping the alien's glow had faded, but it had not. It lingered, subtle now, wrapping her in a halo of light that pulsed faintly with every heartbeat. And even when she tried to hide, the energy escaped, spilling over the fence. Reaching the neighbors, a man approached cautiously, holding a small scanner. Hey, what's going on here? His voice shook slightly, betraying both curiosity and fear. The human raised his hands slowly. Nothing dangerous. Just something you don't understand yet, he said, though he himself barely understood. The alien stepped closer, sensing his unease. It is my season, my time, something natural but strange for humans, she explained softly, her voice calm yet strange to human ears, almost musical in rhythm. The neighbors blinked, exchanging uneasy glances, unsure if they should flee or stay. Suddenly, a dog barked from one of the yards, and its fur stood on end, its eyes glowed faintly. Reflecting the pulse, the neighbors gasped, realizing the effect was spreading not just to humans, but to animals, plants, everything alive. The human swallowed hard. It's affecting everything. It's alive. One of the neighbors, braver than the others, stepped forward with a camera. We need proof. This can't just be happening to one person. He raised the device, pointing it at the alien, and immediately the pulse reacted. A surge of energy shot out like a wave, making the camera flicker, then explode in a harmless burst of sparks. Gasps and screams filled the street. Some ran, some froze, some stared in disbelief. The human pulled the alien behind him. I warned you. They are not ready, he whispered, his eyes scanning for danger. She nodded, the glow on her skin intensifying. They never are. Humans never are ready for this. From further away, a small drone hovered closer, curious, recording, measuring, attempting to understand. But the pulse reached it instantly. The lights on the drone flickering violently, spinning, then falling gently to the ground as if surrendering. The human picked it up, examining it. It doesn't harm, but it controls. It tests, he said slowly, understanding the rules of this force. The alien turned to him. It is a natural call, for my kind. But humans cannot ignore it. They must react, or they will panic. Her eyes glimmered with something fierce, protective yet playful. He nodded, knowing they needed to act before the chaos escalated. A child appeared next, no more than 10, fascinated, reaching toward the glowing patterns on her arm. Wow, It's pretty, she whispered, her voice innocent, pure. The pulse flowed around the girl, tickling, playful, gentle, and she laughed, the first sound of calm in the tense morning. The neighbors watched, some cautiously approaching the girl, noticing that while the pulse was wild, it was not evil. Not yet, at least. The human exhaled slowly, realizing that controlling fear was now as important as controlling the pulse itself. Suddenly, sirens sounded in the distance. A fleet of emergency vehicles, flashing lights, people in uniforms arriving to contain what they believed was an emergency. The human's heart sank. They will not understand. They never understand until it is too late, he muttered. The alien placed a hand on his arm. Then we show them. Gently, carefully. The pulse is not a weapon, not yet, but it demands respect, he nodded. Feeling the truth of her words, she lifted her arms slightly, the glow expanding, pulsating, forming shapes in the air, patterns that seemed to communicate. Not just light, but language, emotion, warning, invitation. The humans froze, their panic slowing as they watched, their eyes wide, their bodies tense, but their minds curious, something awakening inside them, something primitive, connected, aware that they were standing in front of something extraordinary, something alive. The child stepped forward again, holding out her hand toward the patterns, and the pulse bent toward her gently. Wrapping her fingers in warmth, the humans gasped, realizing it was harmless if approached with trust. The human smiled slightly, relief flooding him. Maybe. They will survive it. But then, far down the street, a car engine roared, and someone tried to drive past. The pulse reacted immediately, stopping the car without touching it, floating it a few inches off the ground before settling it back down. A warning, not harm, yet clear enough to frighten the driver. The neighbors stepped back, murmuring, unsure what to do. The human looked at the alien. We have to teach them, or they will destroy it, or us. She nodded, her glow dimming slightly. Yes, humanity's first reaction. Curiosity, fear, awe. It begins here. But the real test, the real challenge, is next. And as the emergency vehicles approached, the human felt a weight settle on his shoulders. He knew the world had changed in a single morning, and the alien mating season was no longer a secret, but a force that would demand attention, respect, and survival. By midday, the street had transformed into a scene of confusion, wonder, and fear. The pulse had grown stronger, weaving through the air like an invisible river, touching everything it could reach. Humans ran from house to house, some shouting warnings, some recording the event, trying to understand. The human stayed close to the alien, watching her carefully. It's spreading faster than before. We need a plan, he said, his voice low, urgent. She nodded, her eyes glowing. They do not understand. And the pulse does not wait. It reacts to fear, to chaos, to emotions. The first official responders arrived. Uniformed officers, emergency teams, drones hovering above, all scanning the area, trying to measure the strange energy. The pulse felt them immediately, bending the drones, humming through radios, flickering the lights in their vehicles. The humans in uniform exchanged uneasy glances, realizing they were dealing with something they had never encountered. One officer shouted, "Evacuate! Everyone stay back!" His words carried authority, but the pulse ignored commands, responding only to the feelings of those nearby. Those calm or curious were untouched, while those anxious or angry found their bodies stiff, muscles trembling, their minds filled with panic. The human grabbed a nearby volunteer, holding him steady. Calm yourself. Do not fight it. It listens to you more than to anyone else. The man's eyes widened, sweat dripping from his forehead, but he slowly breathed, closing his fists, letting tension flow out, and the pulse softened around him. Children gathered near the alien, their innocent curiosity acting as a shield. They laughed, touched her glowing patterns, and the pulse responded gently, wrapping them in warmth. Some adults observed and learned quickly that fear caused chaos while calm invited order. But not everyone followed this unspoken rule. A news crew tried to move forward with cameras, shouting questions, and the pulse reacted immediately, creating dazzling sparks in the air, lighting up the reporters in a gentle, yet firm warning. Cameras fried, lights flickering, and equipment failing. The crew stumbled back, shaken, realizing that this was not a story they could control. From the edge of the neighborhood, a small group of people tried to leave, speeding in a car, thinking they could escape. The pulse reached out, humming around the vehicle, slowing it down gradually, until it stopped safely in the middle of the street. The human ran to the driver's side. "Do not fight it. It's not here to harm you if you obey it." The alien looked around, her glow pulsing with emotion. Humans are unpredictable. Some panic, some adapt. Each reaction changes the pulse. It is alive because it responds to life itself. Her words seemed to reach the crowd. Though they could not fully understand them, they only knew that the pulse was both dangerous and magnificent. A scientist finally arrived, equipment in hand, ready to measure, analyze, record. She stepped forward cautiously, notebook in hand, but even she felt the pulse wrap around her mind, testing her calmness, patience, and courage. "Fascinating and terrifying," she muttered, realizing that traditional science might not fully explain this force. Meanwhile, the human noticed that some of the neighbors were starting to cooperate, forming small groups, calming each other, showing fear to none. The pulse responded by slowing its wild movements, becoming more stable, forming patterns in the air that resembled symbols, messages, warnings, invitations. But the chaos was far from over. A loud noise erupted from a nearby power station, alarms blaring, wires sparking as the pulse touched the grid. The neighborhood plunged into flickering darkness, lights stuttering on and off, and the humans panicked again, their fear feeding the pulse, making it stronger, more chaotic, more unpredictable. The alien stepped forward boldly, arms raised, glow expanding. The pulse bent to her will slightly, forming a protective barrier around the neighborhood, stopping electrical surges from harming people. Her presence calmed some, but others still trembled with fear, unable to accept what they did not understand. The human pulled a group together. "Listen. Do not run. Do not fight it. Stay calm. Focus. Breathe." Slowly, the pulse responded, the chaotic waves softening, flowing around the people instead of through them. Children laughed, touching their parents' hands, and even the officers began to understand the rules. The alien whispered to the human, "This is only the beginning. Humans fear what they cannot control. Yet some may learn. Some may survive. Some may embrace it." He nodded, feeling the weight of her words, realizing that humanity was being tested, not by a weapon, not by an enemy, but by life itself from above. News drones hovered helplessly, unable to report, and civilians watched, some in awe, some in terror. Some were already considering the impossible, that humans and alien forces might have to coexist, tapped or fail together. The pulse pulsed stronger, a reminder that nature had its own rules and humans were part of the equation now. Whether they liked it or not, by late afternoon, the first signs of understanding appeared. Groups calmed, some children played, neighbors helped each other. The pulse adjusted, shimmering over the neighborhood like a living guardian, not a weapon, not an enemy. The human stood beside the alien, both of them exhausted but vigilant. "They are learning," he said softly. She smiled faintly. "Yes, but not all will. Not yet. The real chaos is still coming, and humans will have to face it without panic, or the pulse will remind them again." And as the sun dipped behind the horizon, shadows stretched long across the streets. The neighborhood had survived the first wave of chaos, but the pulse, alive and unpredictable, promised that the test was far from over. Humanity had seen only the beginning. Night fell like a heavy curtain over the neighborhood, shadows stretching long and strange. The air was thick with anticipation, and the pulse that had dominated the day now hummed quietly, almost like it was waiting, watching, testing, learning from every heartbeat and every breath. The human and the alien stood at the center of the street side by side, watching the glow from nearby houses flicker as families tried to sleep. But no one could ignore the tension. It was too alive, too powerful, too unpredictable, people whispered in doorways, wondering what would happen when darkness gave the pulse free rein. Suddenly, the hum grew louder, vibrating through walls and streets, vibrating in bones and minds. The human grabbed the alien's arm. "It's not the same as before. Something is changing." "It's learning fast," she nodded, her eyes shimmering with fear and excitement. "Yes, and tonight, it will show its true form. For those who are ready, and test those who are not." Across the neighborhood, the first tremors appeared, lamps flickered, windows rattled, and some doors shook violently. Humans awoke, some terrified, some curious, peering out to see what was happening. The pulse responded to their mixed emotions, surging and retreating in waves. Like an ocean of light and sound, a child screamed, breaking the calm of a small group, and the pulse reacted immediately, sending a visible ripple through the air, bending shadows and colors in impossible ways. The human rushed to the child, calming her with gentle words, stroking her hair, and the pulse softened around them. Shimmering but no longer violent, meanwhile, the alien stepped into the street, her glow intensifying, casting her body in ethereal light. It is not punishment. It is revelation. It will show humans who they are, who they can be, if they survive it. Her voice carried across the street, commanding attention, and slowly, people stopped running, stopped hiding, and began to watch. The pulse suddenly expanded, filling the sky above, stretching toward the stars, forming shapes that looked like animals, like ancient symbols, like memories humans could not fully comprehend. The glow reflected off windows, cars, and puddles in the streets, painting the night in colors no human had names for. People began to gather in small groups, moving closer despite fear, drawn by curiosity, by awe, by something they could not explain. The human and the alien walked among them, guiding, encouraging, teaching. Do not fight it. Do not flee. See it. Understand it. Become part of it, he whispered. And some humans listened, some did not. Suddenly, the pulse projected visions into the minds of those nearby, showing their deepest fears, their greatest regrets, their forgotten dreams. Some screamed as old memories surfaced, some wept quietly, and some laughed at the beauty of what they saw. The human held tightly to a woman who trembled. It only shows what you carry inside. Face it, and it will respect you. From above, city lights began to flicker as the pulse reached further, touching power lines, communications, even nearby vehicles. But tonight it was not destructive, it was curious. Selective, demanding awareness, demanding courage, demanding calm in the face of the unknown. Those who panicked were pushed back, isolated in shadows, feeling the pulse testing them. The alien knelt on the pavement, her glow spreading outward like ripples in water. It listens, it feels, it grows. It wants humans to see themselves, to see what they could be. If they embrace rather than resist, she lifted her hands, and the pulse responded with a symphony of light, forming intricate patterns in the air, almost like words but older, alien, powerful. A small boy stepped forward, unafraid, reaching toward the glow, his eyes wide, shining with trust. The pulse seemed to focus on him, responding gently, sending warmth instead of fear. The human smiled, realizing that some humans were ready, even children, to face the revelation without panic. But not all were ready. Shadows shifted where fear lived, and the pulse pulsed violently in response, sending warning surges across the street, making doors slam, cars honk, and lights flicker wildly. The human and the alien worked quickly, calming groups, spreading reassurance, teaching the rules without words. Hours passed, and the night became a test of humanity. Patience, courage, and understanding. The pulse continued its lessons, rewarding those who controlled fear and punishing those who did not, until the first light of dawn approached, casting pale yellow across the street, softening the alien glow, and signaling the end of this night's trial. The human turned to the alien, exhausted but amazed. They survived it. Some of them, they listened. They changed. She nodded, her glow dimming but still bright. Yes, tonight was only the beginning. The pulse revealed who they are, but the real revelation will come when they choose to protect, to cooperate, to become more than they were, or fail. Humans stepped cautiously into the morning, blinking at the sunlight. At the ordinary street that now seemed extraordinary, at first silence reigned, then whispers of wonder, of questions, of newfound understanding. Did you see it? Was it alive? What is it? The human smiled quietly, knowing the answers were more complicated than anyone could yet understand. The alien's eyes met his. Tomorrow, the world will know. They will see. Humanity will face the pulse beyond this street, and only some will be ready. Only some will survive the next test. And so, as the neighborhood settled into the early morning, humans and aliens alike prepared for the challenges to come, the pulse pulsing quietly now like a heartbeat, waiting, watching, knowing that the night of revelation was only the first step towards something far greater.